Hey y'all, welcome back to Therapy and the Soft Life. I'm your host, Asia, and today we're getting into a topic that has been sitting on my spirit for a minute now. Because somewhere along the line, main character energy turned into this whole aesthetic. People think you need a dramatic storyline, flawless skin, luxury routine, and some sort of full circle moment every 24 hours just to feel like the star of your own life. Meanwhile, in real life, I'm over here drinking my matcha, going to the gym half asleep, journaling when I remember, and trying to stay present while my dogs act like they pay rent. That's the real main character energy nobody posts about. The quiet version. The version that doesn't need a camera angle or a catchy sound. And honestly, I didn't realize I had stepped out of my own lead role until I noticed how often I was shrinking myself. I was being quieter than I needed to be, downplaying my accomplishments, and making myself small just to make other people comfortable. And there was a moment where I looked back and thought, girl, why were you acting like a background character in your own life? It was giving supporting role. It was giving extra number three. And I just had to sit with that for a second. Because the truth is, main character energy doesn't have to be loud or dramatic or delusional. It doesn't require a full personality makeover or a Pinterest aesthetic. The real version, the one that I'm interested in, is simple. It's you choosing yourself. It's you showing up for your life like it actually belongs to you. And it's you holding space for your growth, even if nobody else claps for it. And sometimes main character energy looks like getting out of bed on a day you want it to disappear. Sometimes it's saying no without writing a whole essay explaining why. Or sometimes it's letting yourself feel what you feel instead of powering through it. Sometimes it's just taking a deep breath and deciding, I'm not bending myself today. And I'm not here to tell you how to fake confidence or pretend you're unbothered. This isn't the delusional era. This is the confidence era. And this era is the one where you know who you are, even without the performance. It's the era that feels soft and steady and feminine and real, not forced. So today, we're talking about stepping back into your lead role in a way that feels aligned, not overwhelming, not performative, not aesthetic for the sake of aesthetics, just you. Choosing you, showing up for the woman you're becoming, even if that growth is happening off camera. This episode is for the girl who's tired, the girl who's evolving quietly, the girl who's outgrown the chaos, the girl who's learning to trust herself again, and the girl who's finally ready to take up space in her own life. So let's talk about what it looks like to embody main character energy without the delusion. Just softness, clarity, and you stepping into your life with intention. When we strip away all the aesthetics, all the buzzwords, and all the performance, real main character energy is actually very simple. It's self possession. It's knowing who you are and moving through your life like you belong in it. Not loudly, not dramatically, just with a quiet certainty that you are allowed to take up space. And it's funny because the internet really convinced us that main character energy had to look like a storyline. So that's constant reinventions, huge personality shifts, dramatic exits, disappearing from social media and coming back for your new era, operations every 2 weeks. In real life, most women step into their main character era not through aesthetics, but through awareness through finally understanding themselves enough to stop performing. Main character energy is the moment you stop outsourcing your identity. It's when you no longer need external validation to tell you who you are or whether you're doing life right. It's when you start making choices based on what actually feels aligned for you, not what you think will impress people or keep them comfortable. It's the shift that happens internally. The way you talk to yourself changes. Your standards get clearer. Your boundaries get firmer. You stop negotiating with things you've outgrown. And honestly, it's not glamorous. Sometimes main character energy is you quietly walking away from dynamics that drain you. It's you holding yourself accountable without spiraling. It's you learning what you actually like in relationships, friendships, routines, your style, your lifestyle, instead of copying what looks good on someone else. It's recognizing your patterns, why you shut down, why you overthink, why you attach to certain people, why you avoid certain conversations, not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Because when you understand yourself, you can lead yourself. And that is the foundation of real main character energy, emotional awareness. This kind of energy is calm. There's nothing frantic or forceful about it. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not constantly explaining yourself. You're not auditioning for a role in other people's lives. You're simply showing up in your own life with clarity and intention. It's choosing things that genuinely support you, not just things that look good online. It's developing preferences, routines, and rituals that feel like you. It's being selective with your time and your peace. It's letting your growth happen naturally without rushing to package it into something inspirational. Real main character energy also has a softness to it, not weakness, but softness. A gentleness with yourself, a willingness to slow down when you need clarity, a willingness to say no when something doesn't match your values, and a willingness to choose peace even when chaos is familiar. It's not you being perfect, it's you being present with yourself. It's not confidence that's loud, it's confidence that's rooted. It's not about being admired, it's about being aligned. And the funny thing, the quieter your confidence becomes, the stronger it feels. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. It doesn't demand attention, but people notice the shift. And you notice it most in how you feel in your own body, your own routines, and your own decisions. Real main character energy is you stepping fully into your life, not because it's flawless and not because everything's figured out, but because you're finally showing up as yourself without the performance, without the pressure, without the need for permission. So, before we talk about stepping into main character energy, I think it's important to talk about how we lose it because most of us don't just wake up one day disconnected from ourselves. It happens slowly and quietly, almost unintentionally. And a lot of the time, we don't even realize it's happening until we feel out of alignment. One of the biggest ways we lose our main character energy is through comparison. You start looking at other women's lives, how they dress, how disciplined they seem, how pretty their routines look, how put together they appear. And before you know it, you're measuring your progress against someone else's Instagram story. And comparison doesn't just steal joy, it steals your identity. It makes you forget what you want because you're too focused on what looks good on someone else. Another way we lose that energy is by over explaining ourselves. When you're constantly justifying your boundaries, your feelings, your decisions, or even your silence, it chips away at your confidence. You start moving like you need permission to exist. You start playing small to avoid being misunderstood. And suddenly, you're not the main character anymore. You're the supporting role in people pleasing. We also lose it when we stay too available. When you're accessible to everybody at all times, when you're always the person others call on, when you're constantly pouring without letting anyone pour back into you, your energy gets diluted. You stop having anything left for yourself. And a woman who is drained doesn't feel like the lead in her life. She feels like she's just trying to make it through the day. We lose it in relationships too, romantic or otherwise. Sometimes you care so deeply about someone that your needs get pushed to the background. You start adjusting your identity to maintain the connection. You soften parts of yourself that didn't need softening. You tolerate things you shouldn't because you're trying to avoid conflict. And all of that slowly pulls you away from the version of you that feels authentic. Another piece that steals main character energy is survival mode. When life feels heavy, when you're stressed, and when you're overwhelmed, you don't have the bandwidth to think about alignment or identity. You're just trying to cope. And there's no shame in that. It's human. But staying in survival mode too long makes you forget what you deserve. It makes you forget your standards, your wants, your dreams. It makes everything feel reactive instead of intentional. And let's be honest, we lose our main character energy when we don't trust ourselves. When you're constantly second guessing your decisions, when you don't listen to your intuition, when you dismiss your own feelings because they're inconvenient, it creates distance between you and your inner voice. It's hard to be the main character when you're not even listening to your own script. And sometimes it's more subtle than all that. Sometimes you lose your main character energy by simply abandoning the things that used to make you feel like you. Your routines, your hobbies, your self care, your boundaries, your style, your creativity. Those things aren't superficial, they ground you. They remind you who you are. And when life gets busy or heavy, Those are usually the first things to go. And here's the thing. Losing your main character energy doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It usually means life has been loud and you've been trying your best. It means you've been adapting, surviving, supporting others, or just moving through phases that require a lot of you. But recognizing the ways you slowly disconnected from yourself is the first step in reconnecting. Because once you see the gap, you can bridge it. Once you notice the pattern, you can shift it. Losing your main character energy is normal, but staying disconnected from yourself doesn't have to be your story. When I think about what it really means to step back into your main character energy, I think about entering what I call the quiet confidence era. That stage where you stop feeling the need to announce every change you're making and just live it. There's nothing to prove, nothing to perform, nothing to convince anyone of. You're operating from a place of inner knowing and not outer validation. Quiet confidence is one of the strongest forms of self assurance, but it's also the most misunderstood because it doesn't look flashy. It's not tied to aesthetics, doesn't require an audience, and quiet confidence is subtle, but you feel it deeply. It's in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you choose, the way you respond instead of react. It's a shift in your energy long before it becomes a shift in your habits. It shows up when you stop rushing your life, when you stop forcing outcomes, when you stop letting other people's opinions shape your decisions. Quiet confidence is rooted, it's steady, it's calm. It's the kind of confidence that lets you move slower because you're no longer operating from fear that something will be taken from you. You're not grasping for clarity anymore. You're giving yourself room to trust that clarity will come. You're not scrambling for certainty. You're learning to sit with the unknown without spiraling. And the beautiful thing about quiet confidence is that it doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It's the energy that people pick up on, even if you never say a word. It's the shift where people look at you and they can't tell exactly what changed, but they can sense that you're more anchored, more intentional, more selective about what you entertain. Quiet confidence is also about self responsibility, understanding that you create the tone of your own life. You choose what you respond to, you choose what you give your energy to. You choose what version of yourself you show up as each day. And you also choose the environments you keep, the relationships you nurture, the habits you feed. Nothing about it is chaotic. Nothing about it is reactive. And everything is grounded in intention. And here's the part people don't talk enough about. Quiet confidence lets you reclaim your softness. When you're not performing strength or constantly defending your worth, you have space to be gentle with yourself. You don't have to armor up the way you used to. You can move slower, you can listen to your body, you can take breaks without guilt, and you can rest without feeling like you're falling behind. Softness becomes easier when you're not in competition with anyone, not even with yourself. Quiet confidence also shows up in the way you handle relationships. You're not chasing clarity anymore, you're observing. You're not begging for effort, you're noticing who naturally shows up. And you're not fighting to convince someone of your value. You're letting people reveal how they handle proximity to you. And you respond accordingly without over explaining yourself or going into damage control mode. It's the era where your boundaries stop feeling harsh and start feeling natural. You don't overthink them, you don't debate them, you don't rehearse them in your notes app. You just communicate them calmly, clearly, because they're rooted in self respect, not fear. Quiet confidence also looks like investing in yourself even when no one sees it. So that could be waking up early to move your body, cleaning your space because you deserve a comfortable environment, putting effort into your style because it makes you feel good, or curating your friendships with intention, choosing routines that support your emotional health. None of these things have to be broadcasted, they simply become part of who you are. And this era is beautiful because it's sustainable. It doesn't ask you to be on all the time. It doesn't demand perfection or constant self improvement. It's not rooted in pressure, it's rooted in alignment. You show up because it feels right, not because you feel obligated. Quiet confidence isn't about creating a persona, it's about returning to yourself. It's you coming back home emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and trusting that the woman you're becoming doesn't need theatrics to be powerful. This is the type of confidence that shifts your entire life without making a sound. One of the biggest misconceptions about stepping into your main character energy is that it requires a huge transformation. Like you need to overhaul your entire life overnight. But honestly, it's the little things that create momentum, the quiet decisions that communicate, I matter in my own life. So here are some of the habits that truly shift that energy, not because they look good online, but because they change how you feel about yourself internally. So the first one is making micro decisions that honor your future self. Main character energy grows when you practice choosing the version of you you're becoming, not the tired version, not the overwhelmed version, not the fearful version, the version who is clear, calm, and intentional. It's doing things like going to bed when you know you need to rest, or keeping a promise you made to yourself, even if it's small. Choosing the action that supports your growth over the one that supports your comfort, or pausing before reacting so you respond in alignment. These micro decisions build trust. And when you trust yourself, your confidence becomes real, not performative. So the next habit is developing clear standards. Standards are not about being picky, they're about being self-aware. They tell the world what version of you they get to access, and they set the tone for your relationships, your dating life, your friendships, your work, everything. When your standards are clear, you stop settling, you stop chasing, you stop negotiating your worth. Your life becomes simpler because you've eliminated the confusion that comes from trying to make things work that were never aligned with you. So, the third habit is practicing boundaries without guilt. A lot of women lose their main character energy because they overextend themselves. They say yes to everything. They take on responsibilities that don't belong to them. They absorb other people's stress and they allow guilt to override self respect. But main character energy requires boundaries, calm, consistent boundaries that create space for you to exist without being overwhelmed by the demands around you. It's not I'm being mean, it's I'm being responsible with my energy. The next habit is romanticizing your actual life, not the imagined version. And this is where your feminine energy thrives. It's finding beauty in the routines you already have. So for me, that looks like my morning matcha, lighting a candle at night, my gym routine, moments where I'm journaling or driving home in silence, meals I make for myself, or the way I keep my space cozy. When you see your real life as worth loving, you naturally move like the main character. You feel more connected to your environment and more intentional with your time, and overall more present with yourself. The fifth habit is creating alignment between your choices and your values. This is one of the most subtle but transformational habits. Ask yourself, does this feel like a yes in my body or a no? Ask yourself, is this choice rooted in avoidance or alignment? When your choices start reflecting your values, everything in your life begins to feel smoother. You stop fighting yourself. You stop living out of obligation. You stop leaning into chaos. Alignment is the ultimate main character energy. The sixth habit is self discipline, not hustle, not perfection. Self discipline is gentle consistency, not rigid routines, not punishment, not grinding until you burn out. It's the discipline that feels nurturing, like you're caring for yourself rather than controlling yourself. It's showing up for your habits with room for flexibility. It's knowing you don't have to do everything perfectly for it to still count. And it's prioritizing progress over performance. This form of discipline creates stability, and stability creates confidence. So, the last habit is learning to validate yourself first. When you stop relying on external applause, your energy becomes steady. You stop wavering based on who approves or doesn't approve of your choices. You become less reactive, less fragile, less influenced by opinions that don't even matter. Self validation sounds like, I'm proud of myself for trying. This was good for me, even if no one sees it. My growth is still real, even when it's quiet. Or I don't need permission to feel good about my progress. When you validate yourself, you stop seeking confirmation that you're enough because you already know. These habits aren't dramatic, but they're powerful. They shift your identity from someone who is surviving or reacting to someone who is choosing and intentional and connected to her own life. And that's where the real transformation happens. Not in the big leaps, but in the small, consistent decisions that reinforce your worth. One of the most important parts of stepping into your main character energy is understanding the difference between identity and persona. Because so many of us have been operating from a persona for so long that we don't even realize it's not actually us. A persona is the version of you that feels safe, while identity is the version of you that feels true. Personas are built from survival. So, from what you got through your childhood, your past relationships, your past environments, or moments when you didn't fully feel seen. They're the mask you learned to wear. So, the strong one, the quiet one, the agreeable one, the funny one, the independent one who never needs help, or the overachiever, or the chill girl who never complains. Personas serve a purpose, but they aren't the full picture. Identity, on the other hand, is who you are when you don't feel the need to protect yourself. It's the version of you that feels natural. It's the version that exists when nobody's watching, when nobody's expecting anything from you, and when you're not playing a role. Identity is what remains when you stop performing. And the reason so many women feel disconnected from their main character energy is because they're trying to build confidence on top of a persona. They're trying to grow, evolve, date, set boundaries, and create a soft life from a version of themselves that isn't rooted in truth. And that always feels exhausting because you're constantly maintaining an image. Identity doesn't require maintenance, persona does. So, building identity starts with curiosity, not judgment, not pressure, just curiosity about who you actually are underneath all the layers. So, ask yourself, what am I drawn to when nobody is influencing me? What environments make me feel most like myself? What habits feel natural instead of forced? What emotions do I tend to hide and why? What values feel non negotiable, even when it's inconvenient? And what parts of my personality come out around people who feel safe? These questions help you separate who you think you're supposed to be from who you genuinely are. Building identity also means reconnecting with your preferences, not the aesthetic ones, but the real ones. What do you like? What feels good to you? What lifestyle actually fits you, not the version of you that's trying to impress people? So many of us skip this step. We adopt other people's routines, clothes, habits, and aesthetics without asking whether they belong to us. Identity comes from choosing intentionally, not copying. Another layer of identity is emotional honesty. A lot of us stay in personas to avoid vulnerability. We pretend we're unbothered. We act like we're fine. We push through everything. We detach. We shut down. We avoid hard conversations. We convince ourselves that expressing needs makes us weak. But true identity includes the parts of you that feel, the parts you push down, minimize, or dismiss. When you're honest with yourself about what you want, what you fear, what you crave, and what you need, your life becomes more aligned. You stop operating from pretense and start operating from truth. Identity also requires awareness of your patterns, not in a self critical way, but in a self responsible way. When you understand why you react the way you do, you're able to choose differently instead of simply repeating the same cycles. You're not running on autopilot anymore, you're moving with intention. Main character energy thrives in intention. Personas keep you safe, identity moves you forward. Personas protect you from rejection, identity protects you from abandoning yourself. Personas please others, identity honors your truth. And once you start living from your identity, not your persona, everything else begins to feel more authentic. Your relationships, your routines, your boundaries, your confidence, your softness. You stop feeling like you're acting. You stop feeling drained by your own expectations. You stop feeling like you have to live up to some external standard. You make choices from a grounded place, not from survival mode, not from fear, and not from performance. And that's when your main character energy becomes natural. It doesn't feel like something you're trying to step into. It just feels like who you've always been underneath all the noise. So let's talk about what main character energy actually looks like day to day. Not the social media version, not the everything in my life is perfect version, but the real practical lived in version that actually matters. Because stepping into your main character energy doesn't mean your life suddenly becomes cinematic, and most of the time, it doesn't look glamorous at all. It looks like a woman making small, steady choices that reflect who she's becoming instead of who she used to be. Main character energy looks like showing up for yourself on the days when motivation isn't enough. Not in a grind until you collapse type of way, but in a I made a promise to myself and I want to honor it type of way. It's waking up early for the gym because you know how good you feel afterwards. Or it's cleaning your space because you function better when things aren't chaotic. Or it's choosing a routine that supports your peace, not your performance. It looks like communicating your needs without shrinking or apologizing. You're not tiptoeing around your boundaries anymore. You're not making yourself small to keep the peace. You're not afraid to say, this doesn't work for me, or I need some space, or I'm not comfortable with that. The more grounded you get, the more natural it becomes to advocate for yourself. It looks like not chasing clarity in relationships. You're no longer trying to decode mixed signals. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're observing how people show up and you're letting their actions speak for them. When someone's behavior doesn't align with your values, you adjust accordingly, calmly, without arguing and without needing closure that someone can't give you. And it also looks like prioritizing your emotional health, whether that's journaling, going to therapy, practicing mindfulness, or simply sitting with your feelings instead of numbing them. You start caring about how you feel, not just about how you look. And you become honest with yourself about what isn't working. You set intentions based on what you want to feel, not how you want to appear. And it looks like being selective with your energy. You're no longer available for chaos or inconsistency or half effort. You conserve your energy for people and environments that feel safe, warm, and supportive. You stop centering people who don't center you. You stop forcing connections. You stop pouring into situations that don't pour back. It looks like allowing yourself to evolve without needing a full announcement. You don't have to rebrand every 30 days. Like, it's not that deep. You don't have to explain why you're changing. You don't need everyone to understand your growth. You allow yourself to shift quietly, changing your habits, your mindset, your environment, and letting the results speak for themselves. It looks like simplifying your life, not in the minimalist aesthetic sense, but in the emotional sense. You stop holding on to things that drain you. You stop entertaining situations that keep you stuck. You stop complicating your healing. You stop stretching yourself thin in places that don't benefit you. And it looks like resting without guilt. When you're the main character, you don't punish yourself for needing a break. You don't attach shame to slowing down. You start trusting that rest is productive and that a soft life isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. And honestly, one of the most powerful ways main character energy shows up is in how you carry yourself in small moments. So, the way you walk into a room, the way you breathe through stress, the way you choose calm over chaos, the way you handle discomfort, the way you release things that aren't yours to hold. It's a quiet shift, but it changes everything. Main character energy isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming someone intentional, someone present, someone who lives from identity, not from fear. And once you start embodying this energy, your life doesn't feel like something happening to you anymore. It starts to feel like something you're actively co creating. All right, y'all. I hope this episode gave you something to reflect on, something to hold, something to take with you into the rest of your week. Because stepping into your main character energy isn't about reinventing yourself overnight. It's about slowly returning to the version of you that feels the most honest, the most grounded, and the most at peace. I want you to remember that you don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. You don't have to perform confidence for it to be real. Sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is show up for yourself quietly, consistently, and with intention. Give yourself permission to grow in private. Give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself permission to change your mind. Give yourself permission to choose what feels aligned, even if it looks different from what you've done before. And most importantly, give yourself permission to take up space in your own life. Nobody else can do that for you. As you move through the rest of your day, I want you to pay attention to what feels like you. Notice where you shrink, where you shine, where you hesitate, and where you naturally expand. Those are the breadcrumbs that lead you back to your identity. So follow them gently. Thank you for spending this time with me and for allowing me to be part of your soft life journey. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who might need that reminder. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one because we're just getting started. Until next time, take care of yourselves today, move softly, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.